stay with me on this one. Just stay with me on this one. Stay with me on this one. Yeah, listen to this record. 8 different players with a touchdown first time.
Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and Ryan is RHOLM22. Can't talk. I got a little something in my mouth, I guess. We have Matt Holder on from Silver and Black Pride, Bleacher Report, and also Tape Don't Lie podcast. You will see him with Marcus Johnson. Matt, how you doing today?
Good, guys. I appreciate you guys for having me on. So excited to get talking some free agency and some draft stuff.
Yeah, free agency.
I guess either.
Yeah, basically. But I mean, before we started, Ryan just said, "Hey, we're going to be refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds to see who goes where."
Pretty much.
I know you went to the combine. I'm gonna have Ryan start us off real quick. A couple questions, but like just kind of like give us kind of your overview of what you saw there and the positions of strength that you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think combine I think a lot of people were talking just kind of across the board. There weren't like a whole bunch of like surprises where you're like, wow, that guy didn't test very well or anything. I think a lot of guys who actually did test and actually did perform, kind of either met expectations or exceeded a little bit. There wasn't a ton of guys who I was like sitting there thinking about needing to drop down and finding out they're not quite as athletic or maybe not taking the training quite as seriously. So I thought it was a good showing from the group. I mean, I think one of the good things that for the Raiders that I keep telling people is this draft class is deep at a lot of their positions in need. Cornerbacks, there were a lot of good guys who showed out. Defensive tackle, I mean, there's 2 guys who are going to be first round picks, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see 4 or 5 in the second round. There's a lot of talent there too, and a lot of guys on day 3 that they can kind of go after, and then the interior line group is pretty good too and pretty strong. So it's an interesting class for sure.
Right.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think the Raiders are going to do at the quarterback position? Because that's what we all want to know. It seems like the veterans are flying off the board. Yeah. The Raiders have to figure out what they're going to do under center, or the rest of these position group talks are great. It's not going to help them win games in the AFC.
Man, Ryan, what was this doing? Like, I got Dwayne starting me off with the softball a little bit, and you're going right into the quarterback conversation.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a mystery right now because I think, ideally from everything I've heard and just from talking with everyone, getting the rumors a little bit as the booze starts flowing in Indianapolis from the combine is the Raiders definitely want to trade up into the top 3. I think they want to go after it, and they haven't really made much of a secret about it. And it seems pretty clear that Antonio Pierce wants to go reunite with Jaden Daniels. The problem is those top 3 teams don't seem to be budging at this point. So I think that kind of throws a wrench in the thing. Then it kind of pivots to how much do they like JJ McCarthy? Do they like him enough and think he's ready to kind of be a starter? He is a guy that I think probably could benefit from sitting a little bit. He's of the top 6 guys, he's probably the least experienced. Maybe Drake May's got a few, like 1 or 2 fewer starts. But I mean, if you remember going back to not this past year, but the year before, McCarthy wasn't even the starter heading into week 1. I remember they had that back and forth battle with Cade McNamara. So he's definitely raw. And there's few things where you could tell he's a little inexperienced. I don't think he's great at reading the field. Throwing deep and throwing outside the numbers has kind of been an issue for him, and he kind of gets stuck on those reads. So that's where I think, maybe giving him the Patrick Mahomes or the plan or the Jordan Love plan where he can take a year to kind of take it all in and learn the system and get a little bit more of that mental processing down, then I think he could be a really good player. But again, do you trade up into that 5 to 7 range to get ahead of the Falcons, who, unless they get a quarterback in these next few days, are going to be in the market and looking for a guy like JJ? And then you got to worry about the Broncos and the Vikings as well. So that's where I kind of sit there and think probably right now, if I had to put my money on it, Michael Penix is probably the guy that they're going to end up getting, just because again, moving up to get a guy like JJ, I don't know how hot they are on that. And Penix will be there at 12. I'm pretty confident. They want to trade back into the first, they can do that as well, or maybe even sit in the second and maybe move up in that first second to see if he ends up sliding. And I mean, he's a guy that you kind of know what you're going to get from him at this point in his career. He's been in college for 6 years. I think his ceiling is probably a little bit lower, but his floor is also a little bit higher. One of those types of guys that probably, between him and McCarthy is going to be more ready to go right away. And it definitely seems like with how the Raiders have been talking this offseason that they want to go for it and they want to go and try and make a run and try and take down the Chiefs.
So it sounds like Matt wants the Broncos to trade up and get McCarthy. If you're the Raiders, and let's say that happens, the top three go, McCarthy goes, and now you're sitting there and it's Nix and Penix. Do you roll the dice at 13 and go with a defensive player, an offensive tackle, and hope one of those guys makes it or trade back up? Because if you don't, if you pass on both those guys and they both go, then you're literally stuck with nothing going into next year. So do you just take Penix and bite the bullet at 13 at that point?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the big conundrum. I kind of would rather see them go with a little bit more of the value play. I mean, it's easy for me to say when it's not my job on the line, and I don't necessarily have to get that pick right. So I could see, Tom Telesco or the Raiders just saying, yeah, let's bite the bullet, get the quarterback now, especially with how deep the defensive tackle class is and the cornerback class. Maybe we'll wait till the second to get them. But personally, if it's me where I'm sitting in my chair, away from the facilities, I kind of like to see them maybe take a Byron Murphy or something like that, or get a corner, a Terrion Arnold, or a Quinyon Mitchell, and then, see how the board ends up falling. Maybe if you get a little nervous trading back in that first, like I was talking about a little bit too, which would obviously be much less expensive than having to get up into that top those top 8 picks.
That would pivot me.
Go ahead.
I would say if that scenario unfolds, it's likely to unfold that the Raiders are not going to get into a position to get one of those top 3 or 4, depending on what you think of JJ McCarthy. The market for Justin Fields is dissipated. If Russell Wilson's in Pittsburgh, Kirk Cousins is going to the Falcons, it sounds like the Bears are not going to trade him within division to the Vikings.
Yeah.
Would the Raiders at that point, would you consider, if it's a 4th round pick for Justin Fields, just to get a quarterback on the roster to give you options once you get to the draft? Do you make that move? And that gives you picks, your first 3 picks to play with in the draft.
It's funny though, when the Fields trade rumors kind of started during the season, that's kind of where I was at. I don't know about giving up a 2nd or even a 3rd round pick for him. A 4th would kind of be where my threshold where I would look into that. The thing that gives me pause and that makes me hesitant to it is the last time Luke Getsy worked with Justin Fields, Luke Getsy got fired. And that's, I think, where I don't think they're going to be that interested in him and bringing him in, despite what Luke might say publicly. So trade compensation wise, a 4th round pick for a guy that has plenty of talent, I think that's something that I would be okay with. It's just a matter of, hey, we've seen this guy try and operate we've seen these 2 guys try and work together. And the last time it worked out, the other guys was looking for a job. So that's where I get a little bit hesitant at bringing in Justin Fields. But for a 4th round pick, the trade compensation wise, that's worth the shot at that point. But it's just a matter of how much do you think that guy could fit, and was the problem just Chicago or whatever? Maybe you didn't like the wind or anything like that, and that's why you didn't want to throw with all those stuff. So
yeah, I heard from some people on Twitter that it was Eberflus. It was Eberflus's fault.
The former defensive coordinator.
I have a feeling that if Getsy goes into the season with Aiden O'Connell and he misses out, let's just say they miss out on Penix, he's gonna get fired anyway. So he's not gonna last very long if it's AOC and like another 4th round pick. So
we'll have to see. Is there a quarterback you would? Because like for me, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna just jump on board and like support any quarterback they get, because they don't do this in the 1st round. They don't draft quarterbacks in any round for a period. So there's teams, the Packers draft quarterbacks all the time, and they had Favre and Farman Rogers, and now they got a franchise guy there now. Do you is there a guy who you really would have a lot of trepidation with at the position of the guys you looked at? Of the
Sorry,
top
say
of the top 6 guys, who would you like really like the guy you probably would really be worried about if they were the quarterback of the Raiders if they drafted them?
it's funny. I've actually got my Oregon shirt on right now, and I'm an Oregon fan, as you guys can see. And I was big on Bo Nix. Oh, there you go, the SC stuff. I was big on Bo Nix for a little bit, or basically up until all the pre-draft processes, like the Senior Bowl. That was pretty rough for him. He didn't look like what we saw at his last couple of years at Oregon, and then the combine, like, not that he was necessarily awful or anything, but like there was a noticeable difference between his balls and the other guy and the other quarterbacks that were throwing. He was missing throws, and comparing him to a Penix, one of the knocks on Bo Nix is he's obviously going to be older too, and so is Penix, but Penix has outplayed him in the last 2 months. And I mean, you could argue during the season this year too, even though both guys played fantastically. So yeah, I think for me, it'd probably be Bo Nix would probably give me the biggest pause and biggest question of like, what are we doing here at this point? Just because again, these last 2 months just haven't been great for him. It's a guy that you'd think would thrive in these situations, given that he's been through so much adversity throughout his career and is older and a little bit more mature, but just to me hasn't quite handled it quite like he would have liked to. So he's a little one that gives me some concern.
The Bears have just signed. Oh, sorry, real quick. The Bears have just signed DeAndre Swift, and
Oh wow,
and Calvin Ridley is talking to the Jaguars and Patriots. Just want to give a real quick stuff here, real quick. Go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say that Swift deal is 3 years, 24 million. That sounds like a good contract for Josh Jacobs to come back to the Raiders. If he could get the Raiders to give him that deal, I would be on board for that. I do kind of agree with Nix. I haven't been a big Nix guy. I don't like his lower half, how he uses his body and his throwing motion. And I think that's I know he completed 77% of his passes, but when he has to push the ball down the field, he's not going to be able to do it with his current throwing mechanics. I do have some pause with Penix based on the offense that he's going to run. If he's going to have to roll out and get on the move, and do some of that stuff that the 49ers, the Packers like to do with their quarterbacks, I don't know if that's something that Penix is going to be good at. If they just want him to drop back and sling the ball down the field, perfect. Play action, throw it deep to Devontae. So it's going to be interesting to see how Getsy adapts the offense based on who the quarterback's going to be, because it's going to be different depending on which one of these guys they get.
And I think that's like what you're talking about with all the bootlegs and all that stuff that Getsy likes to do. I don't, maybe that was partially because Justin Fields is not good in the pocket, but I think if that's what he wants to continue doing, Luke Getsy wants to continue, keeping his quarterback on the move and throwing on the move, then you almost have to go after a JJ McCarthy, because that's that guy, one of the guy's biggest strengths. I mean, you watch that guy throw on the move, and he throws just about the same with his feet moving than he does with the when they're in the ground. He's got some pretty special arm talent for sure. So that's if that's the case, I think you almost have to trade into that 5 to 7 range to go get your guy.
With Tom Telesco, it just seems like he kind of stays where he's at a lot of times. So, and I would think that he would have a little bit longer leash than Antonio Pierce. Just like looking at it, from a bird's eye view. Have you thought about a spot where if they did take Mitchell from Toledo, or they took Murphy at 13, have you seen some spots in the draft where they could trade back in to that first round or top of the second? I mean, I know the thing that Carolina Panthers have the first pick in the second round if Penix dropped out of the first round.
Well, I think there's 2 kind of spots that you could kind of look at. One would be the Cardinals, because they have the Texans pick. I think it's like 27, somewhere around there, like the second half of the 20s.
Yep.
That would be an interesting spot too, because the Cardinals also have the 35th pick, so they kind of have those 2 next to each other, where you can maybe convince them to give you that first rounder and work back from there. And they also have their own first rounder as well. So I think they could be a good spot if you see Penix starts to slide. I forget who did it. I think it was on CBS Sports. Someone had like the Raiders trading with the Ravens at 30, which obviously the Ravens don't have a ton of needs, or immediate needs for a starter. So that could be another one too. And obviously too, if you trade back into the first, you can get that extra 5th-year option with the quarterback, which could be big. So.
Yeah, interesting. But it's funny because like we're still waiting for like the whole. I saw a report today that the whole football world is waiting on Kirk Cousins, regardless of regardless if you want to get him or not. He's still kind of holding the whole cards here to see what happens as far as that goes. Any free agent targets for the Raiders here? We know they need a defensive tackle. They could use another corner to go across from Jones. I know I heard some stuff about Keyshawn Nixon trying to come back, but I don't know about he's not an outside corner. I don't think so.
He's a slot guy.
Slot guy. So what are your thoughts about some targets for the Raiders that fans should be looking at?
Well, I think defensive tackle, especially, it sounds like news breaking that was last night on Sunday night. Eric Armstead running into the mix too. I mean, this defensive tackle class in free agency is really good. Now it was already good before you put Armstead into the mix, but I think if you walked away with the Leonard Williams, with Christian Wilkins, and Eric Armstead, DJ Reader, any of those guys, I mean, how often do we hear about 4 guys of those caliber being able to hit free agency? I think if they can walk away with any one of those 4, they'd be in pretty good shape. For me, I'm a big Leonard Williams fan. For you, there you go. For you, Dwayne, the SC guy. So yeah, he'd kind of be my favorite of the bunch. But he's definitely a guy that is more of a win now move. I think he turns 30 in June, but he can still play. I mean, that was one thing watching his tape and doing his breakdowns. It was a lot of fun. He had a lot of physically dominant reps against the run, and then as a pass rusher still has that bull rush and has a few counter moves off of it that I really like. So he would kind of be one of my biggest targets. Christian Wilkins is kind of cut from the same cloth. Another guy that would be a great one. And like I said, Armstead's not a bad option either now that he's going to be potentially in the mix. Cornerback's a little bit tougher of a story. I was kind of hoping that somehow, some way, maybe L'Jarius Sneed or Jalen Johnson wouldn't get the tag. Wishful thinking on my part, and obviously both of them got hit with it, and kind of dampers the cornerback market from there. After that, it's Kendall Fuller, who's a good player, but also going to be, if he's not going to turn 30 this year, going to be approaching it the year after. So kind of getting up there. Chidobe Awuzie is probably the next guy up there, who I think has kind of been an underrated guy over the last couple of years, but has had some injuries in the last few years. Again, getting up there in age. So the cornerback market isn't exactly great for free agency. It's definitely a lot better in the draft. So I kind of think, if that's how they're gonna approach it, maybe going after one of those big name defensive tackles, and then using that 13th pick on a guy like Mitchell, maybe a Terrion Arnold. So.
Right now, you mentioned Christian Wilkins. Right now, the Vikings, Browns, and 49ers are the ones who are, according to Tom Pelissero, who are in on him. So it's moving quick. It's moving quick. Everybody's jumping in the pool here. Ryan, you got anything else?
Yeah. I would add Sheldon Rankins as kind of an underrated defensive tackle if you're looking for a pass rusher. Some corners I like. It's not a deep group, but Sean Murphy-Bunting, the ex-Buck that's with Tennessee. And these are more like guys, you're rolling the dice on. You're still going to want to address the position in free agency, but Michael Davis has a connection. He's a bigger outside corner. Right, yeah. Not a great player, but if you needed him to a start for you, you could do it. CJ Henderson, gamble on the first rounder. Christian Fulton, another former, I think he was a second rounder at LSU.
Oh yeah,
but some guys with some talent, some size, younger guys that maybe can thrive in a system. None of these guys are number one shutdown corners, but if you get them in for a year or two, draft a guy to replace them. I do think that they will look to upgrade at linebacker as well. If they could get Willie Gay from Kansas City, obviously Patrick Queen. I like Frankie Lavu from Carolina. Jordan Brooks is out there. If you want to go older, Levante David. So there's plenty of depth on the defensive side. To me, it all centers around the quarterback. If the Raiders go into next season with AOC and then maybe a third or fourth round project and maybe a Jacoby Brissett or a Gardner Minshew, all of this doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to talk about something besides quarterback, but it just keeps coming back to quarterback because
you look at it.
They put themselves in a position where it's quarterback.
The Texans hit on CJ Stroud. Boom.
Yeah.
Now they're going to go after Christian Wilkins. Watch the Texans just get flooded with good players over the next couple of years because they hit on the quarterback.
Yeah. And they can afford it too, because having
Yeah.
the quarterback on the rookie deal is one of the most valuable things in the NFL right now. So
Yeah.
And if you don't capitalize on it, you end up being like Cincinnati's now stuck
Yeah.
because now T. Higgins wants a trade. They have to pay Jamar Chase. Look where the Chargers are after paying Justin Herbert. The Dolphins are going to be there pretty soon when they decide to. They actually are there now because they had to let some guys go. But once they pay Tua, so you have like a 3-year window. The Bills after paying Josh Allen, even the Chiefs, they've lost plenty of good players after they paid Patrick Mahomes. They were able to keep the dominant players, but they've lost some depth off that team. So we'll see. At the end of the day, pick 13. Got my eyes circled on what they're going to do. I would like Penix in the right spot, and just see what happens if they can't get into the top 3. And if Drake May slides, I'm moving up to get Drake May. If he falls out of the top 3, I'm moving.
If somehow exactly, exactly. I mean, if the Patriots do something that where they take, JJ instead or something like that, I would. You got to do whatever you got to do to get that. I don't care what.
I look at it this way: the quarterback class next year is not good. So if the Raiders want to wait till next year, you're picking it. The chances of them getting a top pick and the guys right now, you're looking at Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders. It's not a deep class to go get a quarterback out of next year. Carson Beck at Georgia, like these guys aren't moving the needle. So it's now or never. It's time.
It's time. It's time. It's time.
It is time.
It's time. Before I let you go, real quick, the Ravens do have some players who they got to develop, right? So from last year's draft class, I've been looking at Jacorian Bennett, looking at Brian Young. It was funny when I was looking at the tape for Jaden Daniels. Brian Young was in the backfield every 5 seconds, but you can't get on the field here with the Raiders. Those two guys, who do you think they could kind of get them going in year 2?
I'm still kind of a hopeful for Jacorian Bennett. He was a guy that I thought really stood out to me during the preseason last year. And when I flipped on his tape after the Raiders drafted him, I thought he was, going to be a great player. I mean, I was super excited when he was starting week 1. Obviously that ended up falling off pretty quickly in the season last year, but I'm still kind of hopeful on him. I'm still a little bit more bullish. I liked Byron Young. He had, some good moments at Alabama. I always thought he was drafted at least a round too early for where they had him. And obviously we kind of saw the effects of that last year. So not quite as bullish on him. I think he's a little bit more of a 2-down guy, a little bit more stiff and not quite as athletic. Even at the Senior Bowl that year, he was struggling to win in the one-on-ones and pass rush situations. So I'm big on Bennett of those two. Hopefully both of them can kind of figure it out and whatnot. But yeah, I kind of like Bennett a lot. I'm not willing to give up on him just yet.
Yeah, super interesting. Should be interesting to see what happens here with the Raiders here. Hold on 1 second. Oh, sorry. It'd be interesting what happens with the Raiders here. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, man. Keep up the good work.
No problem. Thank you guys. Appreciate it for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
No problem. Have a good one.
All right. Matt Holder, Silver and Black Today, Tape Don't Lie, all that good stuff. Yeah, this is like, we're sitting here talking and I'm looking through rosters and doing all this stuff, and then it just keeps centering back on who's under center. Like they just can't function. And I'm doing these like little short podcasts in the morning, putting them out. And I did one about AOC, him not being the answer. And then the first comment was, I'm just a hater. But at the end of the day, man, I think it's pretty clear he's a backup. He's not a guy who can lead a team. And I don't need to see like a whole lot more to kind of see that. I think you see the same thing too. And I would like to see. If Telesco can kind of finagle the drafts to get the best of both worlds. This is a good draft. I don't want to give up any picks. I'm not really keen on anything that has to do with Justin Fields. I like him coming out of college, but I'm just worried about him with this same coordinator. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to look good again, or look good at all. What are your thoughts about this quarterback. I mean, it's all about the quarterback. It's hard to like. I know it's like it's kind of redundant to keep saying it, but I mean, it's they have to solidify this position going forward.
The ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And to win a Super Bowl right now in the AFC, you're battling 7, 8, 9 quarterbacks that are legit franchise quarterbacks.
100%.
You have to have the 49ers roster. You have to have 4 all-pro offensive guys, skill players, the best running back in the game, a dominant defensive line. The Raiders aren't anywhere near putting all of that on the field. And people want to build up the roster. By the time, let's just say the Raiders hit on a bunch of picks for the next 3 years. By the time you do that, now Devontae Adams is gone. Josh Jacobs is 30 if he's still back. Jacoby Myers is in his 30s. Max Crosby's in his 30s. It's too late. The window is now with the players they have on the roster if they want to compete. And the only way they can do that is they're going to have to take a shot at one of these rookie quarterbacks.
Yep.
You're going to have to throw your hat in the fire and hope you hit, and then you can build everything quickly around them. That's their window. Their window is not slow playing it with Aiden O'Connell, who's 25, 26, not mobile. The Raiders won some games last year because of the defense, not because of Aiden O'Connell. Which is, you can, in the regular season, you can squeak a win here or there. When you're in the playoffs and you have to go through the gauntlet Cincinnati went through, or I'm sorry, the Kansas City had to go through last year. You have to beat Miami. You have to go on the road and beat Pittsburgh. You have to go on the road and beat Baltimore. You're not doing that with Aiden O'Connell. So it's great. You can have him on the roster. He can be the backup quarterback. If you have to play him, you have to play him. But if your goal is to win and be serious about being a contender, he can't be the quarterback.
And all these teams who, like, you know, somebody put out a tweet yesterday talking about saying things about what did they say? It's something about you know, they kind of they gave a list of the first round QBs who failed, but kind of omitted the didn't put in Joe Burrow, didn't put in Patrick Mahomes, didn't put the guys. I'm like I'm not sure why the apprehension is there. I think it's like kind of an ego thing with a lot of Raider fans. Like, they want conditional winning. They want to look cool. Like you know what? I'm not in love with what the Steelers did yesterday, but it makes sense. It's only a 1-year deal. They're paying the Broncos are paying the majority of the contract. You know, I don't love Russell Wilson at this stage in his career, but if they were able to get Russell Wilson and then draft a quarterback, I mean, let's say it was J.J. McCarthy who might want to sit, that would be a nice path. But right now the path is playing a guy who can't move, who is, you know, doesn't, it's not like he has like just tremendous arm strength where he's just slinging the ball all day and all night, where you're like, oh my God, you know, you got to look out for his arm. He's not Dan Marino back there. Like, so it's really like, I mean, it's really something that where we just have to like kind of just grow out of this whole thing where we just think we're too cool for school as fans. Like, I mean, I just want to win. The model says just win, baby. It doesn't say anything else. I don't care if you think the quarterback is cool or not, or they'll put mayonnaise in his coffee. Like, they need to get a quarterback in here who can solidify the future of this franchise, because everybody else does it except for the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think it was 7 of the 8 quarterbacks that played in the divisional round of first-round picks. The only one that wasn't was Brock Purdy. So that tells me you need a first-round quarterback, but those teams had really good records throughout the season, which they had a talented rookie quarterback or a first-round quarterback on the roster. Maybe they traded for one, whether it was Jared Goff, but they had first-round quarterbacks on the roster. That's where you're finding difference makers. Yeah. If you want to hope to go get 8 to 10 wins and roll through a season and hope to catch lightning in a bottle in the playoffs with AOC, have at it. Yeah. My goal is to win championships and to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs year in and year out. You're not going to do that. Yeah, they went on the road and they beat Kansas City, but Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a pass the last 3 quarters. The defense got 2 defensive touchdowns that happened very quickly, and then the defense played lights out. That's not going to happen over a 17-game season, week in and week out. And then you get into the playoffs, let alone trying to win playoff games. So, yeah, the chances are you're going to take one of these guys and it's not going to work. But the only way you're going to find out is to do it. By not doing it, you're just kicking the can down the road, which is what this organization has done for the last 40 years. Yep. And they caught lightning in a bottle with Rich Gannon, and that's it. That was their window. So if you want to try to do this how all the other teams are doing it, you just have to roll the dice and hope you hit. Because if you don't, if you stand pat, and let's say you take Byron Murphy and he turns out to be a solid player, that doesn't move the needle and that doesn't change your organization. You want to change the organization, you have to do it with the quarterback.
You realize if you got Brian Murphy and you had him on the line with Max Crosby, and they combined for 35 sacks, you would.
Well, that's not going to happen.
But I'm just not going to happen. But I'm just saying, I use this for argument to get a quarterback with people all the time, and like you realize that if that did happen, and AOC is the quarterback, you still are going to win 7 games. Like you're not.
Yeah,
gonna,
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
I would say, look at this free agent class. Like Raider fans are foaming at the mouth for Leonard Williams, 5.5 sacks.
Yes.
They got 5 from Madden Butler. Sheldon Rankin 6. Eric Armstead 5. Like Byron Murphy's going to get even good Byron Murphy. If he comes in and is really good, is a defensive tackle 5 to 7 sacks. Maybe he'll approach 8 or 9 every few seasons, which is good. That's good production. That doesn't change the win-loss total at the end of the year in the grand scheme of things. That might get you an extra win. That's not going to help you raise the Lombardi trophy at the end of the season. The guy under center does that. Now, they're not going to be in a position to get one of the top 3, it looks like.
Yep.
So now you're going to have to roll the dice. This draft is different. And I know people want to point back to the 2021 draft and say, well, Fields is going to get moved. Zach Wilson stinks. Mac Jones has already got traded. Basically, it was Trevor Lawrence, and then Trey Lance got traded. So it was 1 out of 5. But those are the odds. The odds are going to be, it's going to be somewhere in the 40 to 50% chance you're going to hit on a guy that can carry you. But without that guy, you can't win consistently. I'm not completely turned off on the Justin Fields idea. I know it didn't work with Getsy, but you're going to have Antonio Pierce. Coaches always think they can make guys better. If Getsy is on board at all and you can get him for a 4th round pick, and the Raiders can't move up and get one of these other guys, and let's say they do take Murphy or Mitchell at 13, and then for some reason they get jumped, and you go into day 2 of the draft. If Justin Fields is still on the Bears, I'm calling him because he's going to be your best option at that point. And then hopefully you have Jacobs back and you run the football and you play great defense. People forget Antonio Pierce wants to play defense. He wants to run the football. He's going to be really conservative by nature. He is not going to go for it on 4th down. So if you can get a quarterback that can make 2-3 plays with his legs and get you, that extra field goal, or get out of that sack and get that 30-40 yard scramble to keep drives alive, Antonio Pierce might sign up for that.
And you sit there and you say, I mean, he may have no choice, because if he goes to the plate with Aiden O'Connell, he's gonna get fired next year anyway. So I mean, to me,
there's no options next year either. So
like
they have to do something
none
right now.
There's none. There's none.
And this team, even with AOC, is going to win 7 or 8 games because the roster's good enough around them.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the same position next year, picking somewhere between 8 and 15. You're not going to be able, if 2 or 3 of these guys emerge, you're still not going to be positioned to go get any of them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they got. I mean, like, it allows you to build the rest of the team. Like, you look at the team like the Jets. The Jets are filled with. A couple of years ago, they had a great draft. They drank a great draft class. Yes, Zach Wilson didn't work out, but they pivoted. They got Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers got hurt last year, but we'll see what he does this year. But you can pivot off of the mistakes. It's almost like we can accept, bad picks from other positions, but for quarterback, we just can't do it. So I think it's definitely time for the Raiders to do that. It looks like Dion Dawkins got paid from the Bills. Boy, tackles getting that money. I got another thing over $60 million a year for in 3 years, $60 million extension for him. So I'm not trying to see. It looks like the Jaguars are, if Mike Williams is cut, the Jaguars are going to be looking at Mike Williams as well too. So getting some weapons over there. One thing about the Mac,
you reunite him with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. What do you think about the trade the Patriots did with the Jaguars, Mac Jones?
Yeah, to me, there was no market for Mac Jones. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Jaguars because now they're not going to pick up the 5th-year option. So you have him for 1 year for cheap as a backup. If Trevor Lawrence goes down, Mac Jones is not winning your games.
Yep.
So having him on the roster, and they're not going to re-sign him unless he completely bombs, if he gets a chance to play and completely bombs, he won't be back. If he sits the bench and doesn't play, maybe they can get him back as a future backup on a really team friendly deal, but that'd kind of be the only upside. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me for Jacksonville to give up a draft pick to go out and get a quarterback who you're hoping just doesn't play. But Trevor Lawrence has battled a lot of injuries the last 2 years. We'll
He
see
has
it.
been.
I probably would have went out and got a veteran and put him on the bench behind him, but we'll see. I do think the Raiders should go after Michael. I think it's Onwenu from the Patriots. I know another Patriot connection, but 6'3", 350 pounds. He plays right tackle, plays right guard. He can really help them in the running game because right now, bringing Andre James back, if you're going to go Miller, Parham, and James, which by all accounts they're going to do, they're not going to be able to move bodies up the middle of the field. So they're going to have some road graders on the right side, or just get some really athletic mobile guys and just count on an outside zone scheme opening up for whoever the running back is going to be. But the Raiders definitely need to upgrade that tackle position, whether it's bringing back Illuminor or going out and getting someone, because the guard market is exploding. Like, guards are getting tons of money. Dickerson just got over $20 million a year with the Eagles. But it's going to be interesting, like we've been saying.
Yeah, and it sounds like Hunt
quarterback.
It sounds like Hunt from Miami is probably going to get a lot of money too, as well too. So, Jerry Jeudy gets traded to the Browns. So you got him and Amari Cooper over there. Wilson goes to Pittsburgh. I think it's a low risk move for them. Why not make that move? And then Chris Jones signs that huge deal. What was your thoughts about two things? Andre James coming back. I think they saw the potential for the guard market, so that's why they kind of maybe made this move. And then Eric Armstead moving on from the 49ers. Would he be a fit for the Raiders?
Well, first with James, I was on board with pivoting and going another direction.
Me too.
And moving Parham inside. But if the guard market is what it is and you want to have continuity, I do think that the offensive scheme that Getsy's going to run, it's an outside zone-based running scheme that the 49ers, the Packers have used. He does fit that scheme. So he's going to be okay on those kind of plays. When you want to get in the trenches and grind it out on third and short, he's still a liability. He's still a liability on stunts with interior games, just not picking those up. So he's going to have to improve on that. He's for what they paid him, I think he'll be okay. They can get out of that pretty quickly. So I don't think this deters them from drafting a center in the draft or signing a guy and trying to develop him, a younger guy behind Andre James. But this is more of like a 1, maybe 2 year stopgap. Plug that hole, move on. I wouldn't expect him to be a Pro Bowl type player. He hasn't been that player. He hasn't shown that type of ability. But maybe you can just get a solid starter out of him. Armstead's interesting because the belief is you're kind of hoping that if Tyree Wilson has to slide inside, that he's a DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead type guy. So getting him in there to help with the pass rush, but also be someone that can help Tyree learn how to be an inside pass rush guy at 6'6", 6'7". I think there's a benefit there, but he's also on the wrong side of 30 years old. He had 5 sacks last year. So you're not going to get a guy that's going to maybe 8 to 10 sacks and just be a dominant force. He'll be a steady force. He'll flash some pass rush. He'll get a little bit of pressure. He'll knock some passes down. He also declined a pay cut. He could have stayed in San Francisco for I would assume, in over 10 to $15 million a year. He was supposed to make, I think it was over 17, and said no. So you have to think they approached him with at least 10. He said no. Would I be willing to go give him $20 million a year on the free agent market? No, I would look somewhere else. He's probably looking at the cashing in on some of these contracts that you're seeing these defensive tackles get. And he'll probably wait for Christian Wilkins to sign and Leonard Williams to sign to see what the market is. Yep. And he'll try to slot under that. I take him on a 2 or 3 year deal that you could get him for $10 million a year, probably. But if he's looking for 15 to 20, I'd probably look elsewhere.
Yeah, Raider Nation. I'm trying to see if anything else breaking. We don't have anything breaking here. Vikings are signing star edge Jonathan Grenard. So
Grenard,
Grenard gets signed there.
That's the ex-Florida pass rusher, and
Yeah.
that tells me Daniil Hunter's on the move. They're not going to bring Daniil Hunter back.
Yeah, he's not coming back. He's been productive, but he's not coming back. So they're trying to get that production without having to spend as much money as a top end the defensive end.
I would ask you on the Russell Wilson deal. I get it; it's 1 year, $1.2 million. But does that move the needle in the NFC North? You're going against Joe Burrow. You're going against Lamar Jackson. You're going against Deshaun Watson, who now has Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper. He's going to get Nick Chubb back, David Njoku, good offensive line.
Yeah.
Like
Probably
he's still the fourth quarterback in that division. So to me, it's the cost is right, but what's the ceiling for the Steelers next year? 9 or 10 wins and losing in the first round. Like that's what they've been doing for years. Like that doesn't change the Steelers at all for me going into next year.
I think that the Steelers are even. I think Steelers are even in a better spot than. I'm sorry, like a better spot as far as like where the roster is and the coach and everything like that. I'm just been a proven winner. Where if they just went and took a swing at a quarterback, it would make a whole lot of sense because you're coming into a team that has a good running back, have a good running back combo. They have receivers. You're right. I mean, he's still the fourth best guy. He's still the fourth best quarterback in the division. They're probably the fourth best team. They still kind of sneak into the playoffs and they don't have losing seasons, but the goal in Pittsburgh is to win championships, and he's not going to win you a championship. He gets you by, but do they really believe in Kenny Pickett? Like that's the thing that the question that like they might say it. I think the owner said it recently that they believe in Kenny Pickett, but like, do they really believe in Kenny Pickett? I can't see that they actually do that. That's just a weird.
They benched him for Mason Rudolph. They don't believe in Kenny Pickett,
who actually played better than he did.
And they're able to pit. They missed 2 years later. They're pivoting and moving on, which you can do now when you miss in the first round. They probably would have been better off just signing Joe Flacco and letting him throw the ball down the field, just throw YOLO balls to George Pickens than signing Russell Wilson.
All right. I don't trust the source, but it looks like the Titans are trying to sign Tony Pollard, but I'm not. It's not Schefter, so everybody comes out of the woodwork now to be a.
Well, where's Wesley Steinberg, whoever that guy is?
Oh, dude, that dude, that dude is hilarious. He looks so legit, though. If you didn't know, that dude looks so legit. That's funny. All right, Ray Nation. I think that's pretty much it for today. You have anything else that you want to before you go?
No, it'll be refreshing. I got a drive coming up here after we get off this call, and then I'm just going to be looking at Twitter, and hopefully the state police don't see me checking my phone as I'm driving down the highway.
Hey Siri, read Twitter for me. They could do that.
Read updates on Twitter. Yeah.
That's the next step for them. All right, take care.
All right, take care.
Hero play. 4-6. To sheer joy.
Jiminy.
Austin Jones in the backfield, and here goes Caleb Williams. Go deep, young man, and why not? Touchdown, Brendan Rice.
Jiminy.
To keeper. Williams running for his life. Fires to the end zone. Jump ball. Touchdown. Rice open that time. Unorthodox, but deadly. Play was blown up because of Tooley. 4th and 1.
3rd down and 10 with USC trailing 14-0. Williams, deep shot. Receiver, it's caught. Brendan Rice into the end zone for a touchdown. A moon ball.
The ball, he's not been targeted yet. And Caleb is looking for just about anybody. This is where he really is devastating when he starts becoming a maestro. Look out, there it is, touchdown. Dorian Singer. Williams, plenty of time, now he's running out. Wow. Now he sees green grass, in the corner, busted coverage, touchdown. Brandon